food independence, emergency preparedness, self-reliance. MyPatriotSupply.com. Get our survival seed vault and feed your family from your own garden for just $37.95. Our non-hybrid heirloom seeds are genuinely American, just like you. Your survival needs and survival seeds are at MyPatriotSupply.com. MyPatriotSupply.com. Self-reliance. MyPatriotSupply.com.
The one thing I will say that the past 50 years has given me, I would say that nothing in this world works the way you think it does. Nothing. Governments do not operate the way you think they do. Banks do not do what you think they do. The police department is not here for what you think it is. Nothing in your world works the way you think it does. There's a far higher, bigger picture.
All right, we're at the airport. We're gonna be getting ready to go through TSA. Well, we're at TSA right now, and just as I figured, they're searching my bag as we speak. Welcome to America. We just drove through the Westfields Marriott. We made the loop right by the hotel entrance. Actually went onto the property.
And this is the hotel where it's all going to occur.
The globalists are incredibly dangerous. The status quo means giving into eugenics, death, and world government.
And the only way we can get back our freedoms is by fighting the oppressors. And the oppressors are here.
You are scum! You are scum! You are scum! You are scum!
One thing that I'm here to do is to provide a service that the mainstream media is not doing.
A lot of the press is owned by some of the attendees inside of here.
Instead of just harping on them and begging them to cover this, screw it. We are the new mainstream media.
The people inside basically set the agendas and tell them not to report on it.
We are here. We are documenting everything live.
End the fake! End the fake! End the fake!
Uncut, unedited.
All right, we're at the Bilderberg conference, and the police are getting kind of weird.
Did I just see that?
This is what we're reduced to. I mean, it's just trying to catch glimpses of people in, hiding behind the Financial Times in the back of their limo, which is, it's not great.
And they will be defeated, and they know it, and they're starting to run scared, and they should be, because information is power, and the truth is setting us free.
In 1954, a group of industrialists, political elites, and even royalty set out to form an organization that would essentially pull the strings of society from behind the scenes.
The Bilderberg Group is a group of world leaders, CEOs, heads of banking institutions that meet every year and decide what's going to happen throughout that next year.
The media has largely ignored this organization over the past 50+ years, and even today, when it is mentioned, it's mentioned in a manner in which you shouldn't be asking about it.
Not everyone in the media, however, is in on it. It's kind of this sense that they get of what not to talk about, what may be considered to be taboo.
Well, I'm here in my capacity as a journalist, covering it for this event for the London Guardian.
I remember you were sent down here, like 2 or 3 years ago to Bilderberg for the first time?
2009. And, so I thought it'd be funny, you know. I said, you know, no one covers this, maybe I should go along and maybe it'll be a laugh. And it turned into an absolute nightmare. I got chased around Athens and ended up wrestling a secret policeman in a subway station. It was mental.
Because the mainstream media in the United States has never covered it until now. London Guardian for 4 years overseas really started breaking it. That was a big deal when you guys were covering it 4 years ago with Charlie Skelton. At first, a little bit laughing, but then he got arrested, well, this is really real. And media said it didn't exist to him. So it's the fact that they play that Jedi mind trick. This doesn't exist. You know, these limousines, and New York Times says, no, they know they're one.
The mainstream media is now acknowledging that these world leaders are meeting, except for there's nothing to worry about. They're not doing anything sinister, even though they meet behind closed doors.
Instead of being humble and saying, you know, I don't know the whole truth, we never do as journalists, all we could do is try to ask questions and do our research. And that's very important for journalists to do. To act like you know everything and to act like what you know is the most important thing is pretty much the attitude of the mainstream media.
They kind of just sit there and repeat what it is being shown on the television screen rather than thinking for themselves.
We've been programmed to believe certain things. We've been programmed to, when we hear certain buzzwords, we immediately close ourselves off to that information.
The guys in here who are deciding on foreign policy, these are the people who are setting the price of gold, setting the price of oil, deciding who's going to be presidents, who's going to be prime ministers. They operate in the shadows. They do not want to be seen. They don't want anybody to know that they are here.
One of the Bilderberg members, attendees, who's one of the big EU regulators over this, publicly has called for an internet ID so they can start the taxing of that and the tracking. That's what China uses.
You know, we just drove up to the security now in press. We showed up press cards and said, can you show us to the press centre? And no, there's no press centre. Can we speak to someone who could represent the organisation to the press? No, that's not available. They're resolutely failing to nurture any kind of proper and grown-up relationship with the press, which is just kind of lame.
The people of the planet are waking up and getting past the puppets. This is about saying, hey, the puppets in D.C. are just front men.
The powerful elite hide behind the curtain of government. They hide behind the wall, the facade of government. And really they're just a tiny dot that control the masses.
These are the shadow masters. These are the people that actually decide who runs and wins in office.
Tony Blair, 2 years before he came from nowhere to become the prime minister, was here and basically certified. Bill Clinton, little-known governor, comes here in 91, boom, fast-tracked it. They like it, it's on. Countless others, John Edwards, Gordon Brown, John Kerry. Obama was here 4 years ago. We talked to our sources inside, people saw him.
We're big on talking about how we can elect our leaders. Yes, we can elect our leader, but you can't select your leaders. You don't select anyone. Your masters who own you will select who will run. That's all they wanted to know. Just which one do you like best? It doesn't mean much of anything.
The rule of the few, oligarchy, is on the whole the most common in human history.
Through a long legacy, incrementalism, and perseverance, the globalists have managed to sprinkle their people in, essentially salt their people into various governmental positions worldwide.
They plan wars, they plan money inflation, They plan deflation.
My estimate is there are about 30 million Americans who really need a job and who can't get one. So, depression level. This is a depression. It's as bad or worse than the depression of the 1930s.
They plan collapses. They plan takeovers of rogue nations.
They want an organized, controlled system where humans are manipulated. They want the resources controlled by tiny oligarchical elite.
You know, Superman in one of the movies said he stands for the American way, freedom, liberty, and justice for all. Well, I like what Dick Gregory said. You're no longer free or brave. You might want to, for the first time in your life, start thinking seriously about where you're going and where your country is going and what's going to happen to your children and your grandchildren when you wake up one day to discover your freedoms are gone, your country is gone, your protections that were guaranteed to you as a citizen are gone.
Well, it's outrageous. Our government's been taken over by the military-industrial complex that President Eisenhower warned us about in his farewell address in '61. Our money's being taken. They're announcing 30,000 drones, armed drones, to surveil us. The CIA says they're listening to our phones now without warrants.
The real leaders are going to talk now. Mommy and Daddy are going to talk now. And when they come out of the meeting, it's always wars, economic despair, and eugenics. I haven't seen anything good come out of the Bilderberg Group.
As the global elite are escalating their agendas, we have to equally bring up our efforts to document these events, cover these events, and make sure that the Bilderberg Group gets exposed for what they're doing inside there.
The mainstream media has become less and less relevant over the years and will continue to become less and less relevant as technology emerges for you and me to bring this information to the masses, to thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions.
Because technology, once again, is that avenue of upward mobility that would allow somebody to challenge your status as an oligarch, right?
The Financial Times of London writer, well, he's a foreign editor, who wrote "And Now for World Government," saying, yeah, we're authoritarian, yeah, we were secret, it's for your own good, we know best. He's here today. The only press that's here are people that literally say, I want authoritarian world government. He actually wrote that. He said, yes, we're secret, yes, we're authoritarian, because we know best. At the top of the pyramid, it's a neo-feudalistic fascist model that uses socialism on the ground to communalize and get people dependent. So it's like a false socialism. But the public thinks they're buying into it as a way to lift up the poor and stuff, but it's really designed to implode societies and to create a post-industrial world controlled by them.
We are here to let them know that their world government has been identified, and they thought they'd implode the world economy to bring in a worldwide police state, but instead it's going to bring them down.
We are going to be in very serious trouble because we are ill-informed, unread, undisciplined, and have been taught to bow down and curtsy before royalty.
If you're an oligarch, you say, I get to rule. Why should you get to rule? Are you smarter than this guy over here? I have a technician who can do things you can't do. Why should you rule? What is it about you? Well, my family, my antiquity. Maybe that's not good enough. If we have a society where people believe in technology and science, they will not tolerate oligarchical domination.
If we don't stand up and take the responsibility for ourselves to stop this globalist agenda, we're looking at a world where our children don't understand what freedom is. We're already seeing that world now. The children born post 9/11 don't understand what it's like to live without the NDAA, without the Patriot Act.
You have left your government in the hands of other people to take care of things for you because you're too busy with your everyday life. Well, when you leave your personal business and your children and your life in the hands of someone else to take care of you, they're going to take care of you all right. Whatever decisions they make, they're going to take care of themselves, not you. Because you left yourself in their care, they will decide what you will eat. They will decide what you will wear. They will decide if you will have a job or not. I will decide how much you will make. And you can bet that I'm going to make 1,000 times more than you do.
In Bilderberg, we have an organization that goes back to 1954. Now, that original generation is mostly gone, obviously. Prince Bernhard of Holland was able to hang on until 1975, when he was knocked out of the picture by the Lockheed scandal, which was a story of bribes that had been paid to foreign politicians.
The reason they want to be secret is the Lockheed scandal in the 70s. They're really worried because they're doing a bunch of arms deals in there.
It was kickbacks on the Hercules C-130 transport plane that had been sold all over the world. Right now, what we see is that some of the most famous people in Bilderberg are now getting on in years, right? We have David Rockefeller, who has been financing, in particular, the North American side, but really the whole thing, with his money and his deep checkbook.
David Rockefeller, who many argue is one of the top globalists in the world, although aging and maybe on his last legs, has really been the face of the Rockefeller family and globalization for quite some time. In fact, in his own book, he states that he and his family are part of a secret cabal that is actually trying to achieve one world government outside of the best interests of the United States.
Why should David Rockefeller, a certifiable cretin, get to dominate the political choices of the political party? Henry Kissinger is now going around in a wheelchair, as far as I can see, also quite aged.
Many people are unaware of the Kissinger-Rockefeller connection. Now, Kissinger, of course, is an ex-Secretary of State, a winner of the Nobel Peace Prize, somebody who's been in the public eye for the better part of 40 or 50 years. Now, Rockefeller meets Kissinger at the Council on Foreign Relations and is extremely impressed. So much so that he gets Kissinger to head up the Rockefeller Brothers Fund. David and Henry have maintained that relationship over several decades since.
I never mentioned the US government or the administration. I don't even use that word. There is an invisible government whose visible head is the Council on Foreign Relations in Manhattan.
And the way that they achieve their goals is they have 20 to 25 central members that go every single year to this conference. And each year, another 100 or so are recruited.
You have the very cream of the banking industry and the CEOs of various huge multinational corporations talking to elected members of parliaments from around Europe and America.
This is the richest people in the world meeting with key national security, NSA people, MI6, European security heads, Von Rompuy of the European Central Bank System and the European Union Council. They're all here. They control the issuance of money and credit. This is it. Top of the pyramid.
The Canadian connection is huge. Of course, former prime ministers, we have Pierre Trudeau and Jean Chrétien and Paul Martin and Stephen Harper. Harper was there in 2003. Just 3 years later, he becomes Prime Minister of Canada. Alan Gottlieb, former Canadian ambassador to the US, is also a member. We asked him about it. He denied it.
In 1996, you were at a Bilderberg meeting, and also there was Jean Chrétien and Paul Martin.
I don't know if I was at that meeting. I've only been to a few of them.
Bilderberg attendees have included Bill Clinton, Ben Bernanke, Queen Beatrix of the Netherlands, Senator Dianne Feinstein, Melinda Gates, Bill Gates' wife and co-founder of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, David Cameron, Rick Perry, and members of the media such as Peter Jennings and Charlie Rose.
We see that there is a long line of people out there that are using their intellect to manipulate the masses with what's essentially mind control, public relations, propaganda, whatever you want to call it.
Peter Manfredge of the CBC's The National is also a Bilderberg member. Heather Reisman, CEO of Chapters and Indigo Books, is in attendance, and she obviously can exert a certain influence over the way people think just by owning the amount of bookstores and magazines and newspapers. She's editor of Huffington Post Canada.
Then we have former Bilderberg attendee Sean Parker. He eventually went on at a young age to get recruited by the CIA for a web crawler program that he built. Somewhat of an entrepreneur, Forbes 400, co-founder of Napster, went on to become first president of Facebook. His newest thing is Spotify, which is an attempt to fix what Napster broke. So this guy's kind of profiteering off of both ends, and when put together with the right forces, with the right people, he has been known to be an agent of disruption.
Why should Pamela Harriman another certifiable cretin, the late now, dominate the Democratic Party with her husband, Averell Harriman, yet another of these stupid, rich oligarchs, right? The stupid sons and daughters of rich men. The Count d'Avignon, Zbigniew Brzezinski, somewhat better shape, right? Spry, but also not immortal. Who is going to carry on this oligarchical tradition, and in what form, in the coming years? And here I would look in particular at Peter Thiel, Thiel, actually born in Germany, but now operating primarily in the United States. He is the co-founder of PayPal, became a billionaire through that. He is also a member of the Facebook board of directors, meaning that he has a fiduciary responsibility, I think, to some of the people who lost a lot of money on that abortive Facebook IPO. And he has this plan to create extraterritorial offshore colonies. So I can only speculate what that means. Slavery, prostitution, narcotics, certainly no minimum wage, no health plan, no child labor laws, you name it. In other words, the destruction of civilization as we've known it. You can have Hewlett-Packard fire 30,000 people, as they're doing, and you can say the remnants and the scraps can be moved to Thiel's offshore islands. You bring in programmers from India. You can actually use such a place to begin to undercut the salary levels, to drag down the economy in the continental United States even further than it already is.
If you control the weather, you control everything. You control every food supply and literally every political system.
So what is geoengineering? Well, it's simply the manipulation of our weather by foreign agents.
Geoengineering is now defined as large-scale manipulation of the planetary environment. This is to counteract man-made climate change. This is what the Royal Society published. This is what they put out. So this is their definition, their term of geoengineering.
We have this issue, which we all have to address and is of major importance to all of us, to know that people are modifying our weather. Thus, we have to look at the facts that can be proven about what's going on in the atmosphere, about what's happening, about water vapor and its impacts, about the climate and the weather modification programs that are ongoing. These are real. The public has, relatively speaking, been kept in the dark about geoengineering, schemes, plans, global geoengineering governance, and the fact that right now, under research, anyone in the world can start conducting these experiments. So we have people artificially modifying our weather in the western states. California, Pacific Gas and Electric Company, or the city of Los Angeles. It's being modified by the Texas Weather Modification Board in Texas. Colorado, Idaho, Wyoming, lots of other states are all modifying our weather and changing our climate, with extreme implications.
We believe many of them are told that what they're doing is very good for the planet, perhaps saving the planet through this climate remediation.
Do these operations exist? Absolutely. Just look at the US GCRP, or the United States Global Change Research Program. Congress has approved it. It goes up to the presidential supplemental budget. It is absolutely known that they are funding these geoengineering operations.
Our nation and many other advanced nations have been manipulating the weather for some time now. Through government white papers and even IPCC United Nations documents, we know that geoengineering is occurring.
The IPCC, the International Panel on Climate Change, has been meeting for various years on this subject. They have produced reports dating back from 1999 on aviation impacts on the global atmosphere from water vapor and other issues, depleting beneficial atmospheric ozone and other problems. A group of geoengineers, a clique, essentially a small clique, has decided that the answer to our global warming problems are to release particles and chemicals into the atmosphere. David Keith, Ken Caldeira, and a small group of these men affiliated with various universities have promoted this for a long time. One of the things that the geoengineering promoters, this clique, has been doing is that they have been able to keep any voices that would be in opposition to them or want to know about the impacts off the record. In other words, that they have become the experts to go to, and that the public and other people have no say. They go to meetings, they go to U.S. congressional hearings, which were held on geoengineering in 2009 and 2010, 3 of them by the U.S. House Science and Technology Committee. They also went to hearings of the UK Parliament during the same period of time to talk about global geoengineering governance and why these experiments should go forward. One of the people promoting geoengineering is Gregory Benford. One of his papers about doing experiments in the Arctic was that they could conduct these experiments, geoengineering experiments in the Arctic. The people there could live within the experiment. And if any harm came to them, it was okay to sacrifice them in that area in order to conduct this research, because the research was very important for them to do. The other thing he noted in an interview was that you could very easily take a little bit of aluminum and a little bit of barium, and you could produce these clouds and have impacts very easily in the atmosphere.
You've got to, in a sense, engineer all these so you get the right kind of clouds for the effects we want.
It is called geoengineering, fighting global warming by putting a chemical dust in the atmosphere and reflecting harmful radiation back into space.
You could use barium oxide, for example, which makes big fluffy clouds. You could use tiny little bits of aluminum, which is benign in the environment, and essentially manage the climate.
I was concerned about this attitude that it was okay to do this research and that we, all of us around the world, should be willing to live in their research experiment. And this is unacceptable.
Geoengineer David Keith made a statement a couple of years ago. He said geoengineering gives man godlike power. Now, I've never chased godlike power. Probably very few of the listeners, unless they're the elite who are checking this film out, have not chased godlike power, but it must be one hell of a rush. And I think what most of us can relate to is maybe a relative or a friend who became addicted to a drug. And in that drug addiction, they have put their health and their family members' health at risk in order to get the rush of that drug. What we're finding in rain tests now around the world is what people are calling the chemtrail geoengineering footprint of aluminum, barium, and strontium. These metals match a number of geoengineering patents that were actually designed to specifically spray these metals out of airplanes into the sky for the stated goal of cooling the planet. They match what geoengineers deny they're spraying but state that they want to start spraying.
If we take ground-based tests, for example, it does not prove the source of the pollution that we're finding in our soils, our air, and our water. It only tells us that something is happening which is not good, that aluminum is increasing, that barium is increasing in soil tests, water tests, and that associated problems are there. There is a belief or an opinion that the jets that leave these persistent jet contrails are spraying something into the atmosphere that would impact our health or cause other types of problems. I noticed when I started doing research in 2002 was that the trees in Mendocino County, Lake County, and other areas of Northern California were in extreme decline. It wasn't from anything we could ascertain because it was whole suites of tree species. That means redwood trees, that means oak trees, that means manzanita, that means Douglas fir.
You can see how bad the health of the trees are here because, see, they don't have people in here because they're afraid these trees are going to fall on somebody. This isn't a construction area. What are they constructing? I don't see anything they're constructing. but you can see that every other one in this area, when you look up toward the top, it has so much dieback and death on it. Every tree in this area is dying or into some sort of decline. You can see right in here, this is the sign of aging and these curled up branches right here. This is all sign of that this tree wasn't in good health. It's doomed to come down at some point. If you can see the dead branches internally all along here. Every one of these trees is sick, all the way down. Technically, it's not safe to be in here because, see, this tree fell over. See right here? This tree actually fell over because once it gets so dead, they just can't stay up and they fall over. Now, every one of these stumps, when you were here, had a living tree on it. Declining, but a living tree. If you look at this tree right here, you can see it's dying from the inside out. If you look here, this is all dead branches. They'll just fall off eventually. Here you've got Stump City. This was all, when you were here, you could hardly see the water from here because you had all the trees. I mean, this is the most gorgeous wood, but if you notice that every angle that's exposed to the air on the top, these are dying. And you can see all the way down that what's under the underside is not impacted, but that the branches and anything exposed to the top are starting to die. So, no matter where you go on this manzanita, see here? That the underside seems okay, but it's dying because something coming down.
And it's very pronounced.
And it's very pronounced. I mean, there is no other thing going on here with the manzanita. It began to occur to many of us that this decline, killing our trees, is removing a beneficial asset for all of us because the trees provide the oxygen that we breathe. They take in carbon dioxide. The trees are beneficial for maintaining stable climates. They're beneficial for watersheds, for the water we drink and the snow that comes through. All the trees that we have are assets of not only the United States, but this world. At this time, there is absolute admissions by NASA that persistent jet contrails and the man-made clouds they produce are having an impact on climate. So when NASA gets involved with the military in atmospheric releases of aluminum oxide, trimethyl aluminum, and other particulates, they know that this will have a reflective quality, that the particles will stay in the atmosphere for some period of time before they come back to Earth, and that this will reduce the amount of direct sunlight reaching the Earth. If we rely on the belief system that we believe this without factual proof, then we're in trouble because everyone is going to think that we're a nutcase. And that's what the astrobiologists at NASA say about people who believe in chemtrails. They say, well, we don't have any proof, we're nutcases. And therefore, our voices are marginalized and have been since the 1990s. Starting in 1996, the U.S. Air Force declared that chemtrails was a hoax. The EPA, all of our government agencies had declared that it was an internet hoax, a conspiracy theory. And thus, since I can't define the word chemtrails as there's no definition legally except hoax, I declined to use this term because it would marginalize my voice and the voices of those using it. The one thing we know and can prove is that rocket programs and atmospheric releases from rockets from the military and NASA and other agencies are releasing particles and chemicals into the atmosphere which can have negative effects on us. Some of the same that are said to be released by jets leaving persistent jet contrails.
Well, the Air Force has been wanting to control the weather for some time. In fact, they wanted to force multiply storms. They wanted to be able to create droughts, create rainfall. Rainfall didn't exist. In fact, in Bosnia, when they were doing the war in Bosnia, they were actually seeding the clouds so that there would be no fog in the area.
There's a military document called Owning the Weather by 2025. That's an expressed interest of our military. Aerosols are required to corporatize and control our weather. What we see in the sky on a regular basis, these long white trails that do not dissipate, they actually form artificial clouds and block the sun, is an expressed goal of geoengineers.
Aerosols are discussed in these papers time and time again. So what are these aerosols?
They talk about how they need to spray these metal particulates less than 2 microns in diameter into our upper atmosphere to shield us from radiation, and this is supposed to be good for us.
David Keith talked about using aluminum oxide to be released by small airplanes or jets, and he talked about having to use water vapor as the medium, whereby an aluminum oxide gas could be sprayed into the water vapor produced by jets, and that the rate of flow, by controlling it, they could control the size of the particles. And the smaller the particle size in controlling this process, the longer these particles would remain in the atmosphere.
The metal particulate, which are nanoparticles, they act as what's called cloud condensation nuclei. So when they're introduced into the atmosphere, instead of water, when it evaporates, condensing and forming as clouds, it will actually condense on this metal particulate, and instead of falling as rain, it drifts.
One of the most interesting interviews I've ever conducted was with an actual chemtrail whistleblower. Now this whistleblower wouldn't come forward and do another interview for this film that you're watching right now because they were threatened.
I was not an employee, I was a civilian contractor for Evergreen Air Services there in Marana. And while I was there, I had several different job descriptions. The first of which was a civilian aircraft, and it was outfitted as a civilian aircraft, a 727-200 series, in which repairs were effected to the 727 structural overhaul. Evergreen prefers to hire ex-military personnel. They do not like civilians working there en masse. The only time that they bring in civilians is when they're in a pinch for personnel that are capable, or if they are in a pinch for people with certain expertise above and beyond their standard personnel that are there. While I was there in 1991, the main and large issue that was going on there is that Evergreen had a contract with NASA with an issue of the NASA 747 space shuttle carriers. I was one of the individuals working in the sheet metal shop that received parts off of those aircraft, performed the repairs, and then sent them out with the ex-military personnel to reinstall them on the aircraft. Did work on 727s there, which were, the 727s were in fact civilian-seated non-cargo aircraft used for transporting people. During that time, there were 5 747s, of which I was a crew member, a maintenance crew member, which retrofitted 5 cargo 747s. The cargo bays were retrofitted, overhauled, repaired with liquid storage tanks with capabilities of discharge. Now, how many of them they did after I left, how many of them they did before I was there, I don't know. But I do know for a fact that 5 of them were done during my tenure there in that 3 months that I was there. I have spoke with people and other employees and contractors that have worked there, that they had seen and witnessed all kinds of nefarious activities over the years. I worked there for that 1 3-month period, and quite frankly, I have no desire to return.
At night, those aerosols act as a blanket and they trap heat and actually exacerbate global warming. We've seen a great increase in nighttime highs since these programs have really been ramped up in the past 10 to 15 years.
We know from research recently conducted by Stanford Studies and earlier research by NASA that persistent jet contrails change our climate and are warming areas now like the Arctic and Alaska, and that aviation impacts, because water vapor is a greenhouse gas, is beginning to increase these temperatures each year dramatically over time. The issue becomes for all of us with water vapor is that it's a greenhouse gas, it's one of the major players in warming, and the jets producing the man-made clouds, according to NASA, are increasing warming. The powers that be do not want to talk about water vapor and its impacts because we could take care of that problem right now very easily by putting restrictions on the amount of water vapor that aviation produces. The small click is not offset with anyone talking about the impacts that these programs would have on air pollution, water pollution, crop production, the reduction of direct sunlight reaching the earth on human health, the reduction of direct sunlight on solar panel power production.
A big concern of ours is this: geoengineering programs shred our ozone. Geoengineers are very open about this. Anytime you put particulate aerosols into our atmosphere, it will affect the ozone. We now have a major ozone hole over the northern hemisphere.
The chain reaction that occurs begins to reduce the amount of direct sunlight and can reduce photosynthesis, which all crops, trees, plants, and everything need to survive.
We now have an issue called global dimming. The Earth is now receiving 20% less sun than it did just a couple of decades ago. So it's of great concern. There's nothing left untouched on the planet that this does not affect.
This is referred to in these documents as SRM, or Solar Radiation Management. And what does solar radiation management mean? It means blocking the sun.
The USDA estimate that crop loss in 2030 will double due to abiotic stress. What is abiotic stress? Abiotic stress is everything that chemtrail geoengineering programs create. It's the drought conditions, it's heavy metal contamination, it's too much moisture, it's also fungal overgrowth. Because our sun is blocked, we have an overgrowth in fungus, which is destroying a lot of our crop.
More molds, mildews, fungus, and pests are able to proliferate because of the warmer temperatures at night caused by the man-made cloud cover produced by the jets.
Geoengineers are very open about the fact that geoengineering creates drought. And if you look at the global drought monitor, most of the world now is in drought. Geoengineers state that geoengineering will create droughts in Africa and Asia. Guess what? We have droughts in Africa and Asia. Every day they spray, they are destroying our protective layer. And again, no ozone, no life on the planet. Many people now are beginning to notice that they burn very quickly when they go out into the sun. The reason for that, again, is our protective layer is being shredded every day. No protective layer, no life on this planet.
These experiments, and with global weather patterns and with jet streams and all kinds of things, can get out of hand and can have impacts on people worldwide.
And they're actually terraforming our planet. That's right, they're terraforming our planet. They're changing the very environment that we live in, and they're making it hard for humans to live in this atmosphere, hard for our plants to live, hard for our animals to live. We are not going to have a future. This is a big issue.
Yes, we can geoengineer our atmosphere, but we're also working on geoengineering the oceans with ocean iron fertilization program, which was and has been initiated to show that it's not successful and causes harm to our oceans.
We're seeing the ramifications of this geoengineering in our everyday lives. We're seeing soil being polluted with the agents that are being sprayed: barium, aluminum oxide, and strontium.
Now what happens is when the chemtrails start to descend upon the Earth, it oxidizes into what's known as aluminum oxide. This acidifies the soil, devastating crops, water. It can go in and actually make so fish can't take oxygen from the water anymore. This causes them, of course, to die. And we also have research from New Jersey that shows that not only full-grown plants, but seedlings are devastated by this as well.
Aluminum in soils is not good for tree health because aluminum gets into the tree roots, and then it prevents the trees from uptaking enough moisture, water, and nutrients to survive. And so it looks like the trees are dying because of lack of water and drought, when in reality, once aluminum is into the root system, they can be dying because they can't uptake the natural things that they need, nutrients and water, in order to survive. The Texas Weather Modification Board has authorized the use of sea salt as a particulate that's used. Well, every time those clouds rain out after they have been seeded with salt, salt reaches the earth. And it's going to have its impact on freshwater systems, marine life, agriculture, crop production, because the more salt in the soil you have, the less productive it becomes.
Through the sterilization of our soils and thus the destruction of our crops, natural organic farmers are now having a difficult time growing natural organic food.
I mean, we have percolate in the vegetables. We have all kinds of things going on, rocket fuel, gas, all these horrible contaminants, and I can tell you it's from what they're doing in the sky.
The chain reaction that takes place will reduce the amount of food that the earth can provide for us, because it changes the soil, changes the pH, and reduces the power generation that plants need, photosynthesis, for growing tall and strong.
The concern for many of us is that if these programs continue, we will not be able to grow anything naturally unless it's a Monsanto abiotic stress resistant genetically modified seed. A number of these crops are what are called terminator seeds. They do not regenerate. So year after year after year, the farmer has to go back to Monsanto, which literally puts the farmers in complete debt. The farmers that are not able to recoup their losses due to the flooding, due to the drought this summer, now are selling their crops for pennies on the dollar. There's a company that's owned by George Soros now that is buying up that property, again at pennies on the dollar. That's an objective of Agenda 21. Once these entities have complete control, they can literally control what crops grow, how much grows, how many people get food. These are natural systems. But through the death and destruction of our natural systems, they come in with their solution, which is genetic modification. And in that genetic modification, they literally usurp the authority of nature or the authority of God, and they bring it under the authority of corporations. The sun drives life here on our planet. We need vitamin D3, which nourishes us, produces certain hormones. Vitamin D deficiency is something that's very common now.
It reduces the amount of direct sunlight that hits our skin when we're outdoors, causing a lack of vitamin D in humans. This lack of vitamin D from this man-made cloud cover and these reflective particles leads to human health problems, which are already being identified in the United States. One of them in recent years has been the advance of rickets, which is almost an epidemic proportion. Not since the time when children were forced to work in coal mines at the turn of the century, instead of going to school and being outdoors during the day, have we seen an epidemic of rickets like is occurring across the United States at this time.
We have aluminum, which we know is linked to Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, dementia, other neurological disorders.
We have seen aluminum-related illnesses go through the roof in Riverside County. We've had over 260% increase. We have autism, ADD, and again, Alzheimer's, all going through the roof.
I came to the conclusion that aluminum-coated fiberglass, or chaff particulates, were used by the ton and released worldwide by the ton for many, many years. These particulates stay in the atmosphere for approximately 20 hours, more or less.
Aluminum, according to the physicians that we've spoken to, actually builds up in the body, so it will accumulate, and if it's not flushed out or chelated, it will compromise the health of an individual. Barium compromises our immune system.
What this means is that after barium exposure, you're actually more prone to virtually all diseases across the board.
We have seen respiratory mortality go from number 8 down to number 3 in the past 6 years. The day-to-day breathing in of these heavy metals will impact our health in a very negative way, leading to cancers and a number of other illnesses.
We do know from studies that putting sulfur up means that it's going to come back down. And in the state of California, it is noted that sulfur can cause reproductive toxicity. And the state of California is required by law to notify the public of any chemicals that can cause cancer or reproductive toxicity, and sulfur is definitely on this list. So these programs are dangerous to us and should be controlled, and the public should be more informed, and that no individual corporation should be able to conduct these programs without public oversight and public consent. And this is a major issue that we're going to be facing in the future more and more.
We're headed up to Mojave County, Golden Valley, Arizona right now. We're going to meet Al DeChico. This guy has had blood tests done. He's actually found toxins in his blood. He believes it's related to chemtrail activity. We're going to go follow up with him and see exactly, his side of everything and why he thinks he's being poisoned from these chemtrails, and if Mojave County, in fact, is some type of heavy spray area.
My name's Al DeChico, and I live in Golden Valley, Arizona, which is in Mojave County. And I'm here, or you're here, for me to tell you a little bit about what happened in regards to toxins in the rain here and in many people's blood. People weren't feeling well. I wasn't feeling real well. I was having symptoms of respiratory irritation and almost failure, heart palpitations, a lot of sinus problems, a lot of coughing, a lot of mucus, just really gross,
About 2 years ago, a friend of mine, Mr. DeChico, he started to tell me about he didn't feel well. He had problem with respiration, and I realized I wasn't feeling well either myself. I am 44 now. I was 42 about then, and I'm pretty healthy. I do not eat any processed food. I grow my own food. I drink water from my own well. The last 6 years since I moved to Arizona, I really live some sort of very natural, simple life. So I didn't understand why my health was starting to get weird.
So I went to the doctor. It was on a day when we were getting bombarded in Kingman up here with a lot of jet traffic and crisscrosses all over the sky, spreading out into haze. And I walked into the doctor's office, pointed up the sky. I said, "You see this? Rumor has it that this is barium, strontium, and aluminum, and I want to get tested for it." And the doctor that I was seeing at the time, she was very good. And she said, "Sure, no problem." She wrote the order. I had it tested, and it came back really high.
So I started to notice and learn that our sky was different. And it doesn't take to be a genius or to be a PH. You see airplanes that make no sense, especially because there is a pattern that was really out of control. Just to let you know, in some days here, we really rarely see few planes. They're really high altitude. They don't leave no trails. Especially because, there is not really much of humidity here. We're high desert, about 3,500 feet. Some days we really cannot even see the blue of the sky because there are so many planes that they create like a fog.
And I had heard of geoengineering and chemtrails in the late 90s, but didn't really pay much attention to it.
For example, I forget things. I realized that during the day when they spray, I forget things. I cannot even remember sometime my name. Seriously, stuff I was laughing at myself. I don't remember where I left my keys. So I started to document myself. Alan, my wife, called me and he said, "Listen, you gotta do this blood test." I just did it for the barium. I didn't even know what was barium, but me and my wife, we did a barium test, and also the aluminum. Bottom line, we had levels above, at least 800% above what's supposed to be the maximum recommended by the lab test.
What came back was very high barium, 190. Let's see, reporting limit is 11. 11, and I was 190.
We went to our local doctor. Of course, he has no idea, so he put it on record. These levels, they're not what a normal person is supposed to have. And yes, they can be deleterious for your health, can be dangerous. Me and my wife, after we received the result of this blood test, we started to be really concerned. After little research, yes, I had all the symptoms of barium intoxication.
Back in 2011, in July is when I did the rain and my first blood test. The rain showed aluminum very high, 321, barium 7.4, strontium 5.5. I retested again January 2012. The strontium was very high, 35, with, let's see, strontium is supposed to be 11. Reporting limit is 11. It's now 40. I was retested here in July.
We tried to find, first of all, a solution. The solution, we wanted to see if it was just us, me, Alan, and my wife, or somebody else. We started to have a pool of people, about 20 people, and we really encouraged them to go to do their blood test. These people, they live in different areas between Golden Valley, Kingman, Bullhead, some also in Phoenix, some also in Texas, okay? As I said, we have about 20 people, and about 90% came back with a very high levels of barium or aluminum.
It's really irritating because I've testified to the health department here, to the board of supervisors. We've been in touch with the governor's office, and nobody wants to do anything as far as really determining where these toxins are coming from.
I'm here mainly to talk about what's in my blood and what's in the blood of 20 people. For your information, geoengineering, also known as chemtrail, is taking place globally, and there are millions of people, scientists, doctors, that know what's going on. Has anybody been looking at the skies here today? Because it went from clear blue for many days, and now we've got crisscrosses all over the sky. My barium was 150 in February. Now it's 190. I also have low blood platelets, which is a problem with clotting, okay? I also have rainwater. If anybody would like to volunteer to drink some. Anybody want to drink some rainwater? It has aluminum in it. And I'm going to tell you how much it has in it. 321 parts per billion, 7.4 for barium, and 5.5 for strontium. Trevor Bajori of the Department of Environmental Quality says this is safe to drink. Anybody want to drink some? I don't. I stay at home. I am disabled and getting more disabled because of what is in our atmosphere.
Excuse me, sir, but your time's up.
Well, extend it. You can extend it. Okay, she spoke for 20 minutes with a high school chemistry class. There's a lot more information out there than that. This is terrible, and you are all being affected by this, and you better wake up, look up, and realize what's being dumped upon us. This is for real. Our own government, the United Nations, is making us sick, and you better wake up. Thanks for the extra time, okay?
Thank you.
I want some answers in writing.
Thank you.
A lot of people like to say, well, no, it's not from chemtrails, it's not from air traffic. If that's the case, fine. Where are the toxins coming from? We need to know this. All of us need to know this because it's in our blood. It's in your kid's blood. It's in your blood. It's in your hair. It's in your bones.
The point is we all live in different households. We live in different parts of the county. Some live also in different parts of the state. We have a couple from Phoenix. We drink different water because the first thing they were trying to throw at us, oh, it's in the water. I did immediately a test. I paid out of my own pocket to see my water if there was any barium. The water is completely clean. No barium at all.
The health department put on a little dog and pony show here locally, trying to, in my opinion, placate the public and try and explain where barium might come from, other sources like Brazil nuts, which I don't eat.
The county tried to discredit us, say, okay, this is in some sort of a magic food, like nuts from Brazil or stuff like that. Come on. First of all, I eat my own food, I grow my own food, and we all eat from different households. We don't live in a commune, okay? So forget the food. I'm not surprised. I mean, let's look at the history. In the last 100 years, it's been proven and completely declassified information. They've been experimenting on people without their consent or will or knowledge. So let's not try to say, oh, my government will never do that. They already done it. Now the point is what they're going to do next.
This next story is so unbelievable, we didn't think it could possibly be true. But after receiving thousands of records and declassified reports from the Army, it's confirmed that during the Cold War, the United States military conducted secret tests on unsuspecting people in the city of St. Louis.
Lisa Martino-Taylor's life work has been to uncover details of the Army's ultra-secret military experiments carried out in St. Louis and other cities during the 1950s and 60s.
This study was secretive for a reason. They didn't have volunteers stepping up and saying, yeah, I'll breathe zinc cadmium sulfide with radioactive particles.
These Army archive pictures show how the tests were done in Corpus Christi, Texas in the 1960s. In Texas, planes were used to drop the chemical, but in St. Louis, the Army placed chemical sprayers on buildings and station wagons. City officials were kept in the dark about the tests. The Cold War cover story was that the Army was testing smoke screens to protect cities from a Russian attack. The truth, according to Martino-Taylor, was much more sinister.
After enough time goes by, the truth either gets completely hidden or it gets exposed, but still nobody does anything about it. We have to do something about this.
I look up to the sky, can you tell me why? My song Cry Die is a chemtrail anthem which we are hoping will open the minds and hearts of people. I want to give them some info about this issue, and at least we can think about that.
Profiteering, greed, are these some of the motives? Some might say so.
Since the 1990s, people have been able to bet on the weather. Now, climate means overall worldwide weather, due to the jet streams, due to different influencing factors. Weather, on the other hand, is a local event. Weather modification programs are initiated by utilities, cities, counties, states, private individuals. Anyone can modify the weather. Just like when Hurricane Sandy came about, people know there's going to be damage in a certain area, and they can bet on that damage, and they can make millions. It's $1 billion worldwide industry, so that right now I could hire a weather modification company if I had the money and the inclination. I could have them enhance snow in some area of the United States, and when I did that, the weather modification company and myself could bet that there would be increased snow in that area during the time of our program, and thus I would make money.
By the way, Bill Gates now, on public record, is a funder into geoengineering programs. He is also a heavy investor in Monsanto.
There is a line of research on what's called geoengineering, which are various techniques that would delay the heating to buy us 20 or 30 years to get our act together.
Bill Gates of Microsoft has been funding cloud whitening experiments using salt particles to see clouds, to brighten them so that it would reflect more direct sunlight back to outer space. The Earth would receive less direct sunlight. But is he consulting with us when those clouds, water rains out and the particulates are salt? Is he responsible then when our rivers and our streams are salted up because of this endeavor to have these type of particulates in our cloud for cloud seeding and cloud whitening purposes?
What may surprise you as well is that Bill Gates actually owns 500,000 shares of biotech corporation Monsanto, the 90+% owner of genetically modified seeds in the United States market.
He benefits on the back end through his investment on Monsanto. It's the Hegelian dialectic problem reaction solution. Monsanto comes in and they have patented a seed that addresses abiotic stress, and it's a seed that covers everything from apples to zucchini.
When I moved out here, shortly afterwards I put in some irrigation with a friend, and I started growing some watermelons, and they grew effortlessly. Just put the seeds right in the soil, the native soil, and they just grew prolifically all over the place. We had probably 25, 30 watermelons for about 3 years, and about 4 or 5 years ago it just stopped. That was it. No more watermelon. Tomatoes wouldn't grow. I'm pretty sure the soil has some problems. Sorry, can't grow watermelons anymore. Can't grow artichokes no more. Your chicken's feathers are coming out.
When most people think of Bill Gates, they think of Microsoft, they think of Windows, they think of the Xbox. They think of a man who has pioneered technology into our living rooms. However, there's yet another side to Bill Gates.
Bill Gates never get into politics, never talk about politics, nothing. He was just in the field of computer. But suddenly something happened that the Congress threatened to break down Microsoft in several pieces. Oh, Bill Gates, the richest man in the United States, was not a member of the Council on Foreign Relations, but he saw the writing on the wall, and then he joined the Council on Foreign Relations, and just then the Congress said, well, we are not going to break down Microsoft.
Bill Gates wields great power through his investments. In the realm of entertainment, you have Comcast, the Xbox, and the Windows Phone. In energy and technology, you have ExxonMobil, Ecolab, Devon Energy, and Cabot Oil and Gas. In banking, you have Goldman Sachs, M&T Bank, and Berkshire Hathaway. And in the field of food, you have McDonald's, Coca-Cola, Diamond Foods, Walmart, and even Monsanto.
One of the ways that's been suggested to fund these schemes is through a carbon tax. This carbon tax means that anybody releasing CO2 would have to pay or purchase credits in order to keep releasing CO2, and that the funding mechanism would then go toward the deficit or go toward various things that would apparently or supposedly save us from climate change and global warming.
I'm going to talk today about energy and climate. And that might seem a bit surprising because my full-time work at the Foundation is mostly about vaccines and seeds. We need to meet a new constraint, and that constraint has to do with CO2. CO2 is warming the planet. I asked the top scientists on this several times, do we really have to get down to near zero? Can't we just, cut it in half or a quarter? And the answer is that until we get near to zero, the temperature will continue to rise. This equation has 4 factors, a little bit of multiplication. So you've got a thing on the left, CO2, that you want to get to zero, and that's going to be based on the number of people, the services each person's using on average, the energy on average for each service, and the CO2 being put out per unit of energy. We do need the market incentives, CO2 tax, cap and trade, something that gets that price signal out there.
Well, this is a problem because no one is talking about how these funds are to be spent, who gets the money that is collected. The carbon tax levied against people who emit CO2 would be against agriculture, energy companies, different type of people that provide power and energy or food for us. And they won't pay the costs. They're going to transfer the costs to us in the form of higher energy. They're going to transfer the cost to us in the form of a tax on us, all the people of the United States, if this is passed. Nobody is discussing the solutions. Everyone is discussing what the funding mechanism will be for various solutions which may not change the climate at all or damage the environment we live in. And so this scheme that is going on, whether it's cap and trade or whether it's a carbon tax, is merely a charade, and it doesn't offer any solutions to the weather events that we're seeing, nor does it address the ongoing weather modification programs, which NOAA lists in their documents.
It's government control of everything in our lives. Everything from the cereal you eat, everything to the air you breathe, how many times you flush your toilet. It's everything. And that's what they're trying to do, is micromanage how we live, who lives, where we live, what we eat, what we breathe, what we drink.
At one of the speeches that Bill Gates gave during the TED conference, he put a rather alarming equation up on the board. Essentially, this equation called for massive population control, without actually saying it. You see, carbon dioxide was part of the equation, and people were part of the equation.
So let's look at each one of these and see how we can get this down to zero. Probably one of these numbers is going to have to get pretty near to zero. That's back from high school algebra, but let's take a look. First, we've got population. The world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, healthcare, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%.
This was a multiplication equation. Now, anybody who's taken first grade math knows that 1 times 0 equals 0. 100 times 0 equals 0. So Bill Gates advocating getting one of these numbers down to 0 essentially calls for our deaths. Well, you can only have 0 carbon emissions if there's no life on the planet. It's an impossibility. Yet the ignorant people in the audience of Gates are cheering, applauding, clapping, and really have no idea what they're taking part in.
Ultimately, what the powers that be are looking for, what the eugenicists are looking for, are two separate species, a worker class and a ruling class. The working class gets fed the GMO. The working class breathes the terrible air. They drink the polluted water.
They used to call it the haves and the have-nots. It's going to become where your genes are literally going to tell them who you are and how much you're worth.
Warren Buffett, who has been described by the mainstream media as the most successful investor in history, is yet another one of these eugenicists that attends meetings on population control. Portrayed in the media as nothing more than a billionaire, an investor, somebody to be endeared, to look up to, somebody holding an ice cream cone or cavorting with Bill Gates. However, Mr. Buffett is instrumental in many of the things that take place in the United States and around the world. Warren Buffett is invested in both sides of the coin in many of his dealings. Here's just a small example of some of the things that Warren Buffett is actually invested in. From Lowe's to Home Depot to Visa to MasterCard to Comcast and beyond. Warren Buffett was one of the attendees to this meeting on population control that included Michael Bloomberg, David Rockefeller, Bill Gates, and even Oprah Winfrey.
Behind closed doors on this New York campus, a secret gathering of some of the world's most powerful people. Gates, Buffett, Bloomberg, Winfrey. It was like the Super Friends.
In the great hall of the Justice League, there are assembled the world's 4 greatest heroes.
Together with others at the meeting, including George Soros, Ted Turner, David Rockefeller, they're worth more than $125 billion. The new Supermen and Wonder Woman, the super rich friends, not fighting bad guys, but fighting for good nonetheless.
The oligarchy is not convinced by findings or statistics or a survey of the world that the world is overpopulated. The oligarchy has to believe that the world is overpopulated simply because they are oligarchs. In other words, it's a structural feature of being an oligarch. In the case of Greek antiquity, we have a very clear example of the connection between oligarchy and genocide based on the notion of overpopulation. We find that the Greek oligarchy, which speaks to some degree to us through Hesiod, was of the opinion that the Greek world and the Mediterranean world was overpopulated in 1000 BC. This is an astounding finding. 3,000 years ago, the oligarchy thought that there were too many people in Greece, too many people in Asia Minor, Anatolia, too many people in the Greek islands, too many people in the Eastern Mediterranean, Egypt and so forth.
Your confrontation with Ted Turner on the subject of basically eugenics and the fact that he's the head of the United Nations Foundation and has called for a massive population reduction.
Well, one of our members, Gary, actually acted like he was for population control.
Mr. Turner, I was wondering if you think it's a good idea to reduce 90% of the population because we are being overpopulated by a lot of... 90%. 80? Prince Philip said 80, sir. I go with 85.
I think 2 billion is about right.
Right, me too. Thank you. Exactly. One-child policy.
We're now at 7 billion, which means getting rid of 5 billion people. And he called for a one-child policy for the next 100 years. So it's pretty scary and pretty ridiculous that he's actually calling for such inhumane eugenics operations when he is actually the U.S. largest landowner and actually has 5 kids himself. And that's what we asked him. How can you call for a world population reduction when you are the biggest landowner in America and have 5 kids? And he really didn't like that. And
The oldest oligarchical trick in the book is to try to blur the line between humans and beasts, humans and animals. And one of the favorite themes of oligarchical sculptures and things like this is to have creatures that are part human, part animal. The overpopulation seems to grow out of the quest of the oligarch to find a way to define other people as subhuman or non-human. The oligarch attempts to say that the common run of mankind, the average person, Joe Sixpack, is really an animal. But the oligarch, the people of wealth and family and whatever other criteria that they may want to drag out, these are inherently superior.
At the basis of it all is this colossal increase in the human population. It's one of the living species of the planet, but it's reaching plague proportions.
So that the answer to the problem that this creates tends to be the extermination of the poor, the useless eaters, the lower classes, the inferior racial minorities, of course, always a favorite target, an obvious target.
The problem isn't overpopulation. The problem is the population is being poisoned.
GMOs were introduced into the food supply several decades ago. No one's exactly sure the time frame, as Monsanto and others were doing secret testing and cross-contaminating crops, even organic crops at the time, before the USDA actually approved it. For example, we've come across documents that show that the USDA had no idea Monsanto was testing its genetically modified alfalfa before its approval in 2004.
The 3 generations of guinea pigs and rats, with all the major GMO crops, there's almost complete sterilization and massive mental retardation in all mammal species fed 3 generations of major GMO crops.
Bill Gates has funded vaccines to be put in our food. Vaccines that irreparably harm people's DNA.
Perhaps the FDA themselves are actually conspiracy theorists, as on their own website it states that vaccines actually include MSG, formaldehyde, a carcinogenic chemical used to preserve cadavers, antibiotics, of course, which are injected into the livestock and known to cause mental illness, and of course thimerosal, which is in fact mercury, in which doctors are fighting to keep in vaccines despite saying back in the 90s that it was causing autism and other neurological disorders.
These vaccines have something called squalene, or if in the United States, right now they're using aluminum. When you inject aluminum into a muscle. It is going to start to attack the immune system. The HPV vaccine specifically was designed to destroy a young girl's immune system. The girls that are given this HPV vaccine fall apart within 2 years. They develop autoimmune disorders, specifically lupus, connective tissue problems. They've even had blood clots, strokes, heart attacks in 13, 14-year-old girls. That's not normal. It even says on the label that it does not treat all forms of HPV, and that HPV is thought to cause cervical cancer.
And I walked over to the police, some of which were smiling, but others which were laughing. And I said, listen, autism was 30 years ago 1 in 25,000. Now it's 1 in 58. Brain degenerative stuff is off the charts. Cancer's tripled. Diabetes has tripled in a decade. I've got all the government documents where they're killing us, and some of the cops were laughing. I was warning them about their families because they're not going to listen now. But as more and more people get sick in this soft kill system that the globalists have launched, people are going to wake up.
It's nobody's right to come in, inject you with a needle that is going to sterilize you, or it's going to change your DNA to the point to where all of your children get dumber and dumber and dumber and dumber until it's a subspecies. And that's ultimately what they're looking for, is a division in the human species, the gods and the clods. If we do have a resource problem, if we do have a population problem, then it's our responsibility to do something about it.
Kings, noblemen, extremely rich traders, they hated the idea of technology and the idea that technology could result in an uplifting of populations. The example being that Prometheus had stolen fire from heaven, from the gods, and made it available to humanity. And that's the most basic of all technology. An avenue of upward mobility for the plebeians, who therefore challenged the class privileges and the class supremacy. The oligarchs hate technology. And if you hate technology, you're already then in a zero growth world, and if there's no technological progress, you're going to have scarcities. Right? This is the existential ontological predicament of every kind of human society, is that you have got to realize progress or you will collapse. So the oligarch says, if there are not enough hats, the answer is not to produce more hats, but to cut off heads. And that's what you see.
People who don't give a shit about the whole human race have got the best technology on the earth. Now you're talking about Adolf Hitler on steroids. And unfortunately, too many people are preoccupied with watching television and sports and trying to make a dollar just to stay alive. They don't realize what's really going on behind the scenes in our country of America and around the world. There's a very big story here that needs to be told. Who is running this planet and what are they doing to the human race?
Hello darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again.
Who was it? Albert Einstein said that you can't depend on the same people who caused the problem to fix it. So I believe that knowledge is power. And this is why so many people in America especially feel powerless, because they have no knowledge. We fall all over ourselves with celebrities, and all we understand anymore is the ball games and the sports and the entertainment.
We have to take a step back. We have to put aside all the frivolous entertainment, television shows, movies, and sports, and get involved with what matters. Get involved with what can really make a difference for ourselves, for our family, for our neighborhoods, for our towns and cities, and yes, for the world in general.
We can change our own reality by changing the way that we think. Once we change the way we think, then we change our perspective on the world, then things around us start to change.
Start looking at the reality of the world you live in, because the world is growing more and more dangerous, more and more ignorant, and extremely violent.
These people are acting as a rogue element of the government. Our laws call for repercussions for that, and that is treason.
We're not talking about anarchy. We're talking about legitimate government which protects the rights of all good people and allows individuals to be who they want to be and to do the best they can.
I didn't watch the presidential debates because I don't like TV wrestling. And I say that because like in TV wrestling, you know, you like the action, but you know that everything is fake. It's fake. They are friends. What is interesting is the amount of time and effort that these people put to convince the American people that there are really two parties and they are opposed, and that by changing the puppet in the White House, everything is going to change and it's going to be okay.
You literally have to do that which has not been done. You have to stand up, speak out.
The answer to 1984 is 1776!
Our great country of America, the United States of America, which was the first time on the history of the earth that a people rose up to demand their freedom and impacted the whole world.
Some people have asked me, how can we actively engage the powers that be? We have to be proactive, we have to get out there, we have to protest, we have to open our own alternative media websites, print newspapers, write articles, we have to get involved in government even though it's corrupt.
That's why it's your responsibility to take action for yourself. It's the individual's responsibility.
Now, the only way that people are going to learn anything is by fellow communication. People communicating with other people, learning from other people, and passing that knowledge on.
We have to start communicating with each other. And yes, we need to look inside to our own selves as the leaders, but we have to share with each other the knowledge that we've gained, and that's the only way we're going to get out of this. Critical thinking.
It seems that many of the so-called useless eaters are engaged in depopulating themselves. There are so many slow kill agents everywhere you look today, from your dinner table to your refrigerator to the aerosols that you spray in your house to the soap that you use.
We want food that isn't poisonous. We want water that doesn't have fluoride in it.
Those that eat natural, organic food are much better off, and that's the cool thing about knowing what to eat and what to avoid. More importantly, it's one of the more solution-oriented ways to gain control of your own life and not allow the powers that shouldn't be to slowly kill you, to poison you.
If we use the same methods, then we're no better than they are. We can't force people to live free. We can't force people out of this prison. We can't force people to not take vaccines. We can't force people to be aware of what they eat. We can't even force the GMO companies to put GMO labels on their food, as we saw in California. That's why it's your responsibility to take action for yourself.
And that's the truth. That is the real truth. The real problem on the earth today is that, as the philosophers once said, all that is needed for evil to exist and prosper is for enough good people to do nothing. And so that's the problem. Today, overwhelming majorities of the American people couldn't care less.
Don't give your money to these corporations that fund the corporate media. Help your local media, help your alternative media, help groups that are getting information out amongst the masses. The truth is in your hands.
But all we can really do is just put this information out there. And if people choose to come to it, great. Some will pick it up and maybe they'll be receptive to it. Others may pick it up and put it back down. Others may pick it up and never come back to it. But as long as we put the effort forth to show people there is a better way, to show people those invisible bars around the world, around their own world, the mental bars that have been put there in order to enslave them, then They have to take the responsibility to free themselves.
We as individuals need to focus on stepping outside of the box and trying to take advantage of resources that are in front of us to expose these globalist agendas.
And the only way we can do this is to take action, to be informed, to use that information in a positive manner to motivate and activate others against this oppression. And once we begin to do this, then the wheels will start to turn, and freedom will be something we don't talk about that is being taken away from us, but something that is being spread throughout the world.
You know, full time, I'm a slave, I'm a slave, I'm a slave, just a full-time slave, I'm a full-time slave, working for this wage, working through this rage, dying to get paid, I put it on a page, paragraph, a paraphrase, I'm pushing out the cage, I'm a full-time slave, mind is set mine is on the stone, whether go rhyme or call a chrome, I'm in the room full of beats, yet I'm all alone, a lone renegade, bone crushing king cave, pour out serenades, unusual use of blades, no else, just pips and spades, dig down deep in the dirt, I flirt with disaster, I'm a core crash, I cast, I'm a bastard master, hard grind faster, grind kid, yeah, shine when I'm on my rhyme thing, but that line's not my thing, I brings what I bring, swing with the best, big hitters, pick the litter lines with this bitter, taste in my mouth, still never ducking out, so running and running out, break through the shackles, miraculous motor mouth, race for the chase, fugitive, I'm forced to shout, I'm a full-time slave, working for this wage, working through this rage, dying to get paid, I put it on a page, paragraph, a paraphrase, I'm pushing out the cage, I'm a full-time slave, I'm a full-time slave, working for this wage, working through this rage, dying to get paid, I put it on a page, paragraph, a paraphrase, I'm pushing out the cage, I'm a full-time slave, months and months, you got some of my hands, touch my task force, I work through lunch, I sweat and crunch, then I grin with my punch, we all crazy, baby, just ask the slave master, I'm a full-time slave, wave my rights bastard, sweat like a racehorse, race through the night, the day after day, a plate full of rice, the same after same routine, it's not a dream, just a real deal where they control, holding the schemes, held head underwater, so I breathe through my gills, the official metaphor for my free write skills, I rewrite bills, and turn the taxes to zero, if I could do that, I'd be the Robin Hood hero, love takes my money, thanks a lot, sonny, thanks a lot, buddy, now I'm broke as a joke, just enough for a bite and a warm can of coke, I'm a full-time slave, working for this wage, working through this rage, dying to get paid, I put it on a page, paragraph, a paraphrase, I'm pushing out the cage, I'm a full-time slave, I'm a full-time slave, working for this wage, working through this rage, dying to get paid, I put it on a page, paragraph, a paraphrase, I'm pushing out the cage, I'm a full-time slave, not a plan, a goddamn joke, not a string of hope, hold on to a thin rope, try to cope, until I skate park open, saw ride walls like an emo kid, I'm open, hoping, God will call, I grab the mic from my fake fuck, waiting, man, I'm taking it all, taking what was taking time back, my time lapse, remind minds of these maps, so look for the pullback, build peaks, the climax, messed up just enough to climb up and out your rat trap, I built this amazing maze in my brain, it's like rain what you make, what I make, mine insane, what I choose to ingrain, the same lame game, the one for the funds where you're working when done, come home, meet your dens, television plugged in, brainwash begins, sleep, then do it again, I'm a full-time slave, working for this wage, working through this rage, dying to get paid, I put it on a page, paragraph, a paraphrase, I'm pushing out the cage, I'm a full-time slave, I'm a full-time slave, working for this wage, working through this rage, dying to get paid, I put it on a page, paragraph, a paraphrase.
America's financial future is in crisis, and food prices are on the rise. Be prepared. Guarantee your food independence at MyPatriotSupply.com. We've created custom emergency food plans that are affordable for your entire family. And while other companies hope you'll never taste their survival food, ours will taste just as delicious 25 years from now as it does tonight. Get the food you'll need before you need it. Freedom, self-reliance, true patriotism. The founding principles of MyPatriotSupply.com.